So I'm pretty sure in this case the enemies of my enemies are not my friends. Hey there, my name is Soundrak and welcome to part 3 of my Don't Starve Reign of Giants guide on the caves and ancient ruins. Last time we went into detail on the creatures and features of each of the cave level biomes, and today is all about the lower level, the ancient ruins. Specifically in this episode, we'll cover the nightmare cycle and the creatures and features of the Wilds, Village, Military, and Sacred biomes. In the next episode, we'll finish the ruins and cover the labyrinth, take down the ancient guardian, and go over all the goodies you can craft at the ancient Pseudoscience stations. As always, chapter links are down in the description, and I'll try to point out major differences from Don't Starve Together as best I can. Now let's get to it! Without a doubt, the ruins level of the cave system is by far the most dangerous region you can explore in both Vanilla Don't Starve and Reign of Giants. In addition to pervasive darkness and plenty of aggressive monsters, you'll also have to deal with the nightmare cycle, which is only present in its fullness down in the ruins. We've already seen that in the cave level there are nightmare fissures that go through a cycle of open or closed, but on that level each fissure has its own timer that is independent of all other fissures and independent of the nightmare cycle in the ruins. But down on this lower level, all fissures, as well as nightmare lights, are synchronized with each other and open and close together as part of the cycle. Here's how it works. The nightmare cycle has 4 phases, each of which has a range of durations that is somewhat variable. The calm phase is the safest, and all fissures will be closed and all nightmare lights will be off. The color scheme of the ruins will be a somewhat bluish color, and you'll just hear normal cave sounds around you. This phase lasts between 4 minutes and 45 seconds to 5 minutes and 45 seconds. The warning phase begins with a distinctive warning sound, and this phase will last from between 60 to 90 seconds. The general color scheme turns to a grayish color, runic turf in particular, and nightmare lights and fissures will open a little bit and emit some light. Ancient statues will also become slightly illuminated, and their gem colors, if any, will be hard to distinguish. But the real fun starts when the nightmare phase goes into full swing. Announced with another distinctive sound, the runic turf will become vibrantly colored, nightmare lights and fissures will open fully, and ancient statues will look all sorts of creepy. Splumonkeys, which we'll talk about in a bit, will turn into highly aggressive and dangerous shadow splumonkeys, and the nightmare fissures and lights will start to spawn shadow creatures. This phase lasts from 2.5 to 3.5 minutes, and if you aren't careful, you can easily be swarmed by lots of shadow creatures, against which your best defense is usually to simply run and never stop moving. Gems and ancient statues become highly visible, but mining the statues during this phase gives them a 30% chance to spawn a shadow creature. You can actually hide from all the shadow creatures of the nightmare phase if you activate a bush hat or a snurtle shell, but no matter what you do, you'll want to make sure you have a good light source that will last the duration of the phase. Just don't hide right next to a nightmare light, as you'll go completely insane in no time. Also be aware that your character might hop up to tell you about an earthquake should one happen while you're hiding. Dawn phase arrives with yet another sound, the turf turns back to gray, and the light radius of fissures, lights, and statues decreases. Shadow creatures will remain active, and splumonkeys will stay in their shadow form for another 15 to 45 seconds when the cycle returns back to calm. Shadow creatures will despawn, leaving behind plenty of nightmare fuel to pick up, and the splumonkeys will turn back into regular splumonkeys. With the mechanics of the nightmare cycle out of the way, let's go over the various ruins level biomes and their inhabitants. When you first drop into the ruins, you'll land on some runic turf surrounded by 4 large pillars in what is called the Wilds Biome. On the ground in the initial area will be several piles of broken clockworks, which we'll talk about in a bit. The rest of the wilds consists of mud turf and has plenty of light flowers, lots of lichen, and blue mushrooms, which will always be out as the ruins are considered to be in perpetual nighttime. This can be a fairly safe biome, but initially will have plenty of depths worms and may have a good population of slurpers. As in the upper level, the worms will disguise themselves as mysterious plants, and if you draw their attention, you can run away and they won't chase you for very far. Slurpers are fun little mobs that will do a roll attack towards you that hits for 30 damage and will then do a lunge attack to try to attach themselves onto your head. This will cause any headgear to be dropped to the ground, after which the Slurper itself will provide light much like a miner hat while draining your hunger with their namesake slurping sound. They can be dislodged from your head by unequipping them or by equipping any head slot item. They only have 200 health and when killed will drop 2 light bulbs and have a 50% chance to drop a Slurper pelt. 6 pelts can be combined with 2 rope and 2 nightmare fuel at a shadow manipulator to craft the Belt of Hunger, a chest slot item that reduces hunger by 40% while also providing a small sanity boost. The pelts can be given to the Pig King for 1 gold and used to befriend pigs, but for some reason bunnymen don't consider them as meat and won't attack you if they see you carrying some. Note that Slurpers, like tentacles, do not respawn, so once they're all gone, they're gone for good. The Wilds Biome generally has several ponds that can be fished to obtain eels, which have a variety of uses. They can be eaten raw with no negative effects, or cooked for slightly better hunger and healing. Dried, they turn into small jerky, but can also be cooked in the crock pot along with 1 lichen and pretty much any combination of additional ingredients to always produce unagi, a decent healing item but otherwise mediocre meal. My personal favorite use of eel, if you have a world with either shipwrecked or hamlet enabled, is to combine 2 eel with 2 monster meat to make surf and turf, a dish that sports a whopping 60 health and 33 sanity with a modest 37.5 food points. Just remember, when fishing any type of pond, the time between catches increases as more fish are caught from a single pond. So to catch fish fast, only take 1 or 2 from each pond. The Wilds is a great place to set up a ruins level base for extended spelunking trips, though you may want to scout out the area when the nightmare phase is active to find a spot that doesn't have any nightmare fishers nearby. Bonus points if you can find a spot with lots of light flowers and ponds that will work for all your ruins base needs. Because nightmare fuel is extremely abundant in the ruins, it's probably a good idea to know how to make the magical night light, as you probably won't want to be constantly burning other fuels to keep fire pits lit when at your base. Though of course fire pits and endothermic fire pits may be beneficial for winter and summer trips respectively. The Wilds biome is generally the central biome of the ruins level, with the other biomes branching off of it. That said, sometimes contiguous with the wilds is the similarly looking Village Biome, which can also contain ponds, light flowers, and lichen, though usually in smaller quantities. You'll know you're in the village when you start to find Thulecite walls, relics of the ancient culture, and patches of runic turf, as well as banana trees and Splumonkey pods. The Thulecite walls can be smashed with a hammer to recover Thulecite fragments. Similarly, the relics can be smashed and have a lot of items on their loot table, but the good stuff is usually pretty rare. You'll generally only get some rocks and maybe frazzled wire or other trinkets. Broken relics can be repaired with 3 to 6 rocks, which will restore 20 sanity. Banana trees can be harvested every 4 days for a banana, which can be cooked or eaten raw for 12.5 food points. If shipwrecked is enabled, they can be added to a crock pot with an ice and 2 twigs to make a banana pop. That's a nice sanity booster. The trees themselves can be chopped for log and 2 twigs, with another log coming from the dug up stump, but you probably won't want to do this as like mush trees they are non-renewable. The Splumonkeys are what you'll need to watch out for in this biome, as they are annoying little twerps. 1 pod can spawn up to 4 Splumonkeys, which will follow you around, and if you're wearing a backpack or have Chester around, they'll periodically run up and knock an item out and then try to pick it up and run off with it. Running away from these guys is only somewhat useful, as once they start the grab animation, it will still drop an item even if you move away. Otherwise, they'll generally try to keep their distance, but if you attack 1 Splumonkey, all others in the area will get mad and start to throw poop at you. This does no damage, but drops your sanity by 10 points per poop. If you have a tentacle spike or better, you can kill a Splumonkey in 3 hits, as they only have 125 health, and this can be done during the time they do their grab animation, including when they pick up any item off the ground. What makes them really nasty though is when they turn into shadow Splumonkeys during the nightmare phase of the nightmare cycle. In this form, they become highly aggressive and will chase you until either defeated or they turn back into regular Splumonkeys when the calm phase returns. A small number of shadow Splumonkeys can be taken down pretty easily with a good weapon and some armor, but if you got more than a handful of them on you, you'll likely get stun locked and killed pretty fast. Whether shadow or regular, they'll always drop a banana, a small meat, and 50% of the time, a nightmare fuel. as well as any items in their inventory, which will generally be manure, more bananas, and any items they've picked up. Shadow Splumonkeys will also drop beard hair, which, if you aren't Wilson, is a good source of the stuff for making meat effigies. The Splumonkey pods can be destroyed with fire or a hammer to reduce the potential number of Splumonkeys, but as they are a good source of food down in the ruins, you probably won't want to destroy all of them. The village will also sometimes have patches of web on the ground marked on the map with a white-looking spider. If the web is disturbed, 2 Dangling depth dweller spiders will descend from the ceiling and attack you, and are basically identical to spider warriors on the surface. These guys are extremely common in the labyrinth and military biomes, and in single player Don't Starve, you can actually destroy their nest by carefully burning a log in the center of the webbing. Moving on to the military and sacred biomes, I'm going to cover these two together as they are mostly the same. The entrance to the military ward is always a square pattern of runic turf with a single ancient statue in the middle, whereas you can only get to the sacred biome by making your way through the labyrinth, a maze-like series of hallways infested with dangling depth dwellers. The military biome itself consists primarily of rocky turf with smaller patches of runic turf, while the sacred biome is primarily runic turf. The military biome will generally have at least some dangling depth dweller nests, and both areas are overrun with damaged clockworks, which resemble clockworks on the surface in a state of disrepair. Scattered throughout these areas are also nightmare lights, ancient statues, and piles of broken clockworks, which can be repaired with 3 gears, causing a friendly damaged clockwork to spawn. These friendly clockworks can be helpful for clearing out the hostile ones, just be sure to leave Chester in a safe place as even the friendly ones will attack him. There are actually 3 types of broken clockwork junk heaps, each of which resembles a combination of 2 types of clockworks. The Knight and Bishop piles have a 50-50 chance to spawn each of those types, while the Rook Knight and Rook Bishop piles have a 70% chance to spawn a Knight or Bishop respectively, and a 30% chance to spawn a Rook. These piles can also be smashed with a hammer, which has a 10% chance to spawn a hostile clockwork, and whether smashed or repaired with gears, the pile will drop 1 to 2 frazzled wires, which are good for 5 gold at the Pig King, and also have much lower chances of dropping gears, melty marbles, Thulecite, and most colors of gems. The damaged clockworks themselves only drop a single gear, except for the Bishop, who instead leaves a purple gem behind. Each type of damaged clockwork also has a 60% chance to drop a Nightmare Fuel, and a 50% chance to drop a Thulecite fragment. Because of the value of all these loots, it's a good idea to clear out all of both the damaged and broken clockworks. Both the military and sacred biomes will have plenty of ancient statues to mine, and are the only places where you can find the ancient pseudoscience stations where the most powerful items in the game can be crafted. We'll cover those more in the next episode. The stations found in the military biome are generally broken though, and will only have half the recipes of a full station, but can be repaired using either Thulecite or Thulecite fragments to restore full functionality. The sacred biomes will generally have a mix of broken and at least 1 complete pseudoscience station, and the station can be destroyed with a hammer and have a chance to drop all sorts of stuff. Also note that rampaging clockwork rooks can destroy the pseudoscience station, so be careful around the stations if a rook is hopping around the area. As for the ancient statues, these things are a great source of both Thulecite as well as all colors of gems, including the rare yellow, orange, and green gems. You can actually re-roll the colors of the gems by either logging out and back in, or traveling out of the ruins and back again. Gemless statues will remain gemless however, but should still be smashed for the Thulecite they provide. But that's all I have time for in this episode. Keep your eye on the channel though, as I'll be doing the final ruins episode back to back with this one. Thanks for watching, and now get out there and don't starve!